Hidden passages full of artifacts, mysterious chambers in the tomb of King Tut, underground labyrinths. These are mysterious chambers in ancient Egypt. For hundreds of years, nobody even knew these passages existed. The Great Pyramid has a room called the Queen's Chamber. Back in 1872, a British engineer named Wayman Dixon found two narrow shafts hidden behind the walls. They're only about 8 inches wide, way too small for a person to fit through, and for over a century, nobody had any idea where they went. Then in 1993, a German engineer named Rudolf Gattenbrink sent a small robot into one of them. It went for more than 200 feet before it hit a tiny limestone door. The stone slab had 2 copper fittings on it, almost like handles. Nobody expected to find something like that down there. In 2002, another robot drilled through it. On the other side was a small open space, and then another door further in. A follow-up mission in 2011 got clearer pictures past the first door and spotted red markings on some of the stones, but the passage just ended at another wall. Over 4,500 years later, nobody agrees on what these shafts were actually for. Some think they were symbolic, tied to the pharaoh's journey after death, but the thing nobody can explain is why they were sealed off in the first place. The bent pyramid is really strange. It's kind of like a proto-Egyptian pyramid. It was built for Pharaoh Sneferu around 2600 BCE, and it gets its name from how it looks. The sides of it go up at an angle, and then they suddenly shift partway up. One entrance is on the north side, another one is higher up on the west side, and each leads into its own set of corridors and rooms. Inside, the passageways are steep, and some of the rooms are close to 50 feet tall, built by stacking layers of stone that gradually lean inward until they almost meet at the top. The whole layout is more complicated than other pyramids from the same period. Most researchers think the design changed during construction. The pyramid may have started developing problems, so the builders adjusted the angle on the outside and reworked parts of the inside as well. But why it ended up with 2 separate chamber systems, nobody's really nailed down. The whole thing feels almost like an experiment. Egyptian builders still figuring out how to do this at that point. And the inside of this pyramid makes that pretty obvious. It's not a polished, finished product. The smallest of the 3 Giza pyramids doesn't get a lot of attention. People have generally assumed for a long time that there wasn't much left to find inside it, but recently, teams scanning it picked up signs of possible empty spaces behind some of the granite blocks. Researchers are being careful not to overstate things. An odd reading on a scan, it doesn't automatically mean that there's a secret room, but it could be just a gap left during construction. Nothing's been confirmed. Still, it's a pretty big deal. People have assumed for generations that the pyramids had already given up everything interesting, but that keeps turning out not to be true. Whether these spaces end up being something major or just how the pyramid was built, it is a reminder that even the most famous monuments in the world, they haven't been fully explored yet. The Step Pyramid in Saqqara is often described as Egypt's first pyramid, built around 2650 BCE. On the surface, it just looks like big stone steps stacked on top of each other, but go underground and it's a completely different situation. Below the pyramid, there's a massive network of tunnels, shafts, and chambers cut straight into the rock. It spreads out in multiple directions, and some put the total length of tunnels at several kilometers. Not all of it is safe to walk through today. The main burial shaft goes deep down to a chamber that was built for Pharaoh Djoser. Around it are dozens of smaller rooms, some packed with goods meant for the afterlife. The thing that makes it unusual is how early it was. Builders were still learning how to work at this scale, and you can see that in the layout. Some corridors are planned out cleanly, others look like they were added later or just changed along the way. Parts of it are still blocked off today because it's just not stable enough to walk through safely. After everything that's been studied down there, people are still working out exactly what the full layout looks like though. Directly under the Great Pyramid, there's a room that looks completely out of place compared to everything above it. The chambers higher up have smooth walls, clean lines, at least perfectly placed blocks. This one has none of that. The walls are rough, the floor is never leveled, there's no decoration, there's no finishing work, it's just like bedrock with a room carved into it. It's usually called the subterranean chamber. You get there through a passage that descends from the pyramid's entrance. The chamber sits at the bottom, and past it are some smaller tunnels that are even harder to get into. Nobody agrees on why it exists. One theory is that it was supposed to be the burial chamber originally, and then at some point the plans changed and everything moved up into the pyramid itself. Another idea is that it was used during construction as some kind of anchor point for getting the measurements right above ground. Neither one has solid evidence behind it though. It just doesn't fit with the rest of the pyramid. The room looks unfinished. Thousands of years later, researchers still don't know exactly why. Out in the desert near Saqqara, cut deep into the bedrock, there's an underground site that doesn't get nearly enough attention. The Serapeum is a long set of tunnels, and inside them are some of the largest stone containers ever found in Egypt. Solid granite sarcophagi, heavy as hell. Each one weighs up to 70 tons. Just moving something that heavy into an underground tunnel would be an enormous task today, let alone thousands of years ago. They were used to bury Apis bulls, animals that were considered living representations of the god Ptah, treated almost like royalty. When one died, it got a formal burial inside one of these giant boxes. The tunnels are narrow and low in places, which makes it even harder to picture how these sarcophagi got in there. Some sections were clearly cut specifically to move the boxes through, but the exact method they would have used is still something researchers argue about. With the tools they had at the time, it would have been a massive undertaking. Parts of the site are open to visit, definitely a site that I would be adding to my list if I'm ever lucky enough to go to Egypt. Underneath the Giza Plateau, way below the pyramids, there's this underground structure called the Osiris Shaft. It's not just one chamber, it's more like a vertical stack of levels carved straight down into the rock, rooms sitting at different depths as you go lower. The name comes from Osiris, the Egyptian god tied to death, the afterlife. Inside you got this mix of spaces. Some were carved cleanly into the rock. Others are partially flooded because groundwater keeps seeping in at the lower levels. Researchers have also found stone sarcophagi and carved niches inside some of the rooms. The problem is access. People have known about it and studied parts of it over the years, but getting all the way down is not easy. Like I said, there's water filling sections of it, and some areas just are not stable enough to really explore safely. But most archaeologists think that this didn't start as one finished design. It probably began as something smaller, maybe a tomb, and then got expanded and modified over time as different layers were added. Even now though, there are parts of it that haven't been fully explored. Tutankhamun's tomb is one of the most famous archaeological finds in history, but even with all the attention, there is still some mystery. In 2015, researchers used ground-penetrating radar to scan the walls inside the burial chamber. The scan suggested there might be empty space behind two of those walls. That got people talking pretty quickly, because one of the ideas that came up was that there could be another chamber back there, possibly even connected to Queen Nefertiti. Unfortunately, that part has never been proven. More scans were done in 2016 and again in 2018, and instead of clearing things up, there were just more questions. Some teams said they still saw signs of possible voids. Others said they didn't really see anything convincing at all. A lot of it comes down to how radar readings behave when they pass through thick stone, and how different researchers interpret the same results in different ways. Egypt's Ministry of Antiquities said there wasn't solid evidence for hidden chambers. Other researchers were still convinced that it couldn't be ruled out entirely though. In 2023, researchers announced they'd found a corridor inside the Great Pyramid that had been sealed off and completely unknown for more than 4,500 years. It was found using scanning technology. The corridor is above the pyramid's main entrance, about 9 meters long, with a triangular ceiling, a design that helps spread the weight of everything pressing down from above. That same approach was used in other parts of the pyramid, but this particular passage, they'd never found it before. The main theory is that it was just an empty space designed to take pressure off that section, but there's also the possibility that it connects to something else further in that hasn't been found yet. Nobody's physically gone in, there's no hidden room or artifacts. All they know for sure is there is a passage, one that's been sitting there completely unknown for thousands of years. Similarly, in 2017, scientists confirmed there was a massive hidden space inside the Great Pyramid that nobody had known about. The technique they used is called muon scanning. Muons are tiny particles that constantly fall from space, and they pass through solid rock, but they don't behave the same way through everything. Dense stone slows them down differently than open air does. So by tracking how they move through the pyramid, researchers could get a picture of what was inside without cutting into anything. And What they found was a large empty space above the Grand Gallery, one of the main interior corridors, at least 30 meters long, one of the biggest unknown spaces ever detected inside the pyramid. Multiple researchers from Japan and France working on something called the Scanned Pyramids project all came to the same conclusion. The space is definitely there. Nobody knows is what it was built for or whether it connects to anything else. Nobody's gone in. Problem is, it's sealed inside solid stone, so actually opening it up, that would risk damaging the pyramid, and they don't want to do that, obviously. So, everything researchers know about it comes from scan data. That has been the video, and I will catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next one.